Hello,
Yes.
everyone. This is Conversations with Rob. We have a special guest who I just kind of found out about, and I'm interested to hear what he's got to say. This is Patric. All right, Patric Rutherford is a pastor, and he's wrote a book about Donald Trump and how the book's title is How Donald Trump, it's about him and his relationship with God. So I'll have him talk a little bit more about it. So God and President Trump plus the rest of us is the name of the book. You can buy it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all those sorts of bookstores. So Patric, thanks so much for coming on the program. We greatly appreciate you being here.
It's a joy to be here. A pleasure to talk with you. Thanks for the opportunity.
So Patric, let's start out and tell us about, first of all, a little bit about you so the viewers know more about you. Where did you grow up, and what got you into studying theology as far as in college and getting into that field?
Wow. Well, you know, my mother became a devout Christian when I was a little boy, and she influenced me greatly. And at 11 years old, I wanted to be a pilot, and I said, but how am I going to talk to people about Jesus when I'm flying around the place? And so the Spirit said to me, why not become a pastor? And I made my decision from there. So I went to theological school, and I pastored for 5 years and was ordained to the gospel ministry. Have not pastored since, actually, but have always identified myself as a pastor and used every opportunity that I have to preach the word. I've worked in various industries. My last full-time work was hospital administration for a religious nonprofit system, and right now I lecture for a nonprofit university also.
So,
but ministry is in my blood.
Oh no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I said ministry is in my blood, and my relationship with God has shaped my life all through. I've seen His blessings, His miracles, His goodness, and there's nothing more potent to me than to have a relationship with God and to share that love with other people.
Right. So talk about the book. What made you write this book on such a divisive figure in the country right now, and as a time in our country where, you know, we have the left versus the right, we have a lot of racism, a lot of anti-Semitic talk, hate crimes are up. What made you want to write a book about God and President Trump?
Well, during the election, coming up to the election time, I was listening carefully to the various candidates that were posturing for the position. And just a little bit my background that will help you understand why this was poignant for me is that in my PhD dissertation is entitled Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder Among Select High Schools in Kingston. And in that study, I had to delve into the effect of trauma on people's lives, especially children.
Right.
And so when I heard Donald Trump talking about people coming across the border as rapists and murderers, I saw two things happening. I saw the creation of fear in the minds of American people who would think that their lives are in danger because the border is open and all these rapists and murderers are coming to hurt them. And at the same time, I'm seeing on the other side, the vast majority of people who are coming across the border alive, they're being labeled as rapists and murderers. And that's not a good feeling to have as a human being, to want to seek refuge in a country that has been blessed and prosperous. And all of a sudden you hear this rhetoric that you're not welcome here because you're all rapists and murderers, when they're really people fleeing rape and murder.
Right. Well,
and so, you know, that talk, that the creation of fear and the belittling of other people, my Christian upbringing and the teachings I have in psychology and pastoral work said this is not good. So just about right after the election, we began to, I began to think and look ahead. So what's the country going to face now?
Right.
And several relatives and friends would call me and say, Patrick, what's going to happen to us now? Because the rhetoric during the campaign by Donald Trump made minority people like myself, who were not, white males, wonder what's going to be the outcome for us. Are we going to be rounded up and driven out of the country? How are we going to be treated? The years and years of hard work by the civil rights movement, the sacrifice of many Black Americans and white supporters that have brought about this tremendous change to where a Black man could have been elected president. Is all of that going to be reversed? Are we going to have Jim Crow again? Those kind of thoughts passed through my mind, and so I had several calls from relatives and friends who said, what's going to happen to us now? Mm-hmm. And so the book is written for two purposes. One of them is to give some comfort to those individuals who are concerned about what's going to happen to us now, to say God ultimately is in charge of the world and this country. And though bad things can happen, eventually he will work it through for the good of those who love him. And the second part was to make aware to people that what we are seeing should not cause us to hate Donald Trump. He is a human being, and hate is a negative emotion. So our response should not be one of hatred. What we must do is to gear ourselves to hold him accountable for his actions. So he, like any other human being, he has the freedom of choice, and being president, he could choose to do a lot of good for the country, even minorities. And if he did make that transition, we would all be happy. Nobody's perfect, but he could do that. On the other hand, I have several examples in the book about people who were leaders, and those who were spiritual leaders, and those who were just used in the process. And so that was the purpose of the book, was to inspire some hope, but also inform the public that we need to hold those in office, including President Trump, accountable for his actions. If we don't, we participate with him in the destruction of innocence. And God is interested in the preservation of innocence in the world.
Right. So I'm a Christian also, and a devoted Christian, but I see a lot of people that we saw a lot of white Christians, and even Christians in general, white, Black, Hispanic, whatever, vote for President Trump in 2016. A lot of the Christian conservative vote did come out for him. My thing is, I find that, this is the question I have for you, is I find that really skeptical how that would happen. I mean, as a Christian myself, Jesus taught me that you care for the sick, the poor. Jesus helped people that were the lowest among us, prostitutes. He didn't want to give money to the rich. He hated the rich. Maybe hate is a strong word, but he disliked the rich. He was all about trying to make everybody equal in society. We see Donald Trump come on board, and as we talked about earlier in the interview, and you described too, we look at Charlottesville, where a woman got run over and killed with neo-Nazis. They were preaching hate against Jews, against Blacks. We've seen him make all kinds of derogatory remarks about women, saying, I'll grab him by the you-know-what, and who cares? I mean, it's just insane to me, and I'm sure you also, as a Christian, to see somebody win elected office, whether we agree with his politics or you don't, somebody win elected office that claims that they're so Christian, but they do in everything that Jesus would be against. And what do you think about that? How do you feel, and how do the people that you talk to feel about this that are also devout Christians, like such as yourself and myself?
We are facing a significant challenge in the Christian community. There are people like me and you who are involved in what I consider basic Christianity, the day-to-day living and striving to live like Jesus. We have another form of Christianity that is religion, that preaches a kind of a prosperity gospel. And many individuals involved in this aren't even conscious that they're caught up in something that is not a true representation of the life and teachings of Jesus Christ. Right. Because they have leaders who give them the impression that they're on the right path and they're doing the right thing. And if you come to church and return your tithe or give a liberal offering or whatever system you have, you're going to prosper, you're going to do well. And then to validate that kind of a religious experience, they target a few specific sins that things they identify as sins, and they have the congregation focus against those. And in the religious right, the big thing is being against abortion. Right. So if we can get the entire congregation right up against abortion,
we're back.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
okay.
Fine.
If we can have the entire congregation right up against abortion, and if we can just do the things that are these small, seemingly small, but blown up as significant things, then we're doing God's will. What I find interesting about that kind of thinking is that, and I'm not promoting in any sense abortion as a means of dealing with the challenges and issues that people face with unwanted pregnancy. Right. But I'm facing a bigger reality that the vast majority of people who are concerned about abortion would at the same time be as concerned about those who are born. In contrast to those who are unborn, right, then it would be a different world. So what we have is a world in which people get riled up about one critical issue in a way that they overlook the other things. Jesus said, these are the things you should have done. You should have paid your tithe, but you should not leave the others undone, justice and mercy. Don't just show mercy in one area. Don't be legalistic in one area, but in all areas of your life. So what are these individuals who are so riled up against abortion, rather than going shooting people who are at abortion clinics and stuff like that? Why not create a program that's going to reach out to young people, first to educate them to moral living, so they make good choices with how they behave themselves sexually. 1, 2, if they get in the situation where they're pregnant, why don't we have more programs to say, okay, we'll support you through the pregnancy, and even after the baby is delivered, if you choose to keep it, we will help you to rear this child to the honor and glory of God. And so your fear of your poverty or whatever difficulty you're in that's pushing you to have an abortion, you don't have to fear those things, but we'll make the resources available for you to be able to rear your child. That doesn't seem to enter into the equation most of the time. There are a few people who do that, but the vast majority of people don't take that tack to it. They just, what I find interesting is that a lot of people who have that kind of a myopic view of how religion is practiced, when it comes home to their own home situation, all of a sudden they're looking for different options,
right?
And they have a different view. I've heard people condemn drug addicts because they break into people's houses and steal their things to support their habits. And all of a sudden, they find out that their own son is a drug addict. And all of a sudden, the tune changes. It's, oh my, the government should have more treatment programs. The church should get more involved with helping young people on drugs, because it has come home to roost in their own neighborhood, in their own home. Yeah. So it's easy to point finger at people and find faults with them, but it's not so easy to look inward and say, what am I doing to really solve the problem at its root? And so we have churches that are riled up about people coming across the border. Churches are riled up against abortion and so many other what they might call social ills that they don't agree with. But they're overlooking compassion, respect, care, the love for the poor and the needy in society. That goes out the window in many instances. And so, it really is challenging to look at this unfold. And when I look at Donald Trump and I say, how can a deeply devoted, committed Christian who loved Jesus and loved the ways of Jesus be so supportive of someone who lies profusely, who has a hateful reaction to everyone that seemed to oppose him, who is willing to destroy everything so that he can look good? I say, what are people thinking? But I think there's a piece of psychology that is involved here, and that is when people vote to put a person in power, they identify their own self-concept with that decision. So by voting to put this person in, I'm not a stupid person, I'm a wise person, I did the right decision, I'm really good, a good person doing this. And if their self-concept is not strong, it's difficult after they see the evidence that the person is really not fit for the office to back up and say, oh, wait, I was wrong. I did it I did something, but I didn't understand. Marco, I have met people who have voted for him who now regret it, right, and are willing to say that. But with the percentage of people who are still supporting him, there's to me some denial of the reality of what they're looking at because they want to preserve their imagery or oops, wait a minute now, here is the elephant, but it's not really an elephant anymore because so many people have called it out. And that is a significant number of people who are supporting Donald Trump have a racist motive. We have heard it in the media, on various stations. We have heard them discuss this issue, that there's the fear on the part of white males with the significant integration that is taking place. I heard a statistic recently that says that 2019 is the first year in the history of America that we had more people of color registered in kindergarten than white people.
Yeah. Well, Patrick,
that's a startling thing,
right,
for some people to deal with.
Yeah, and I agree with you 100%. I want to bring this into the picture that you're 100% right on. What you said about with Trump is that we see that a lot of people in power, we see people that are, religious leaders, politicians, they preach against abortion, as you said. They preach against gay marriage. They preach against all these different things. But then we've seen so many of them on the news. As a person that's Catholic, all the priests that got caught in the child sex scandal, abuse scandal. We've seen other leaders that have cheated on their wives, as far as politicians and religious leaders. but they go out and preach in front of on the pulpit, or they preach in a campaign event that they're against these things. They would never do nothing. They follow Jesus. They do all this stuff, all the flowery language, as you said. And honestly, it's all BS in plain English, because they just do the opposite behind the back room. So, but as you said, these people believe these things. They believe all this stuff to be true. They're like hypnotized, whether it's in church or, in a campaign event, that they love this person so much they could do no wrong, whether it's Trump or somebody else. It's the same thing. And I do agree with you that Trump, he hates Obama. Obama had made that speech in the White House Correspondents' Dinner, where he made fun of Trump to his face while he was in the audience. And Trump, basically, he hates Obama. So everything Obama does, and Obama did do some good things, Trump wants to undo it. So, and it's just a spite thing. And it's really, as you said, sad for the country that this is what we have. We should, I voted for Obama twice, in full disclosure. I like him, but I don't agree with everything he did. I thought he could have did more, but I don't hate him. I hope that Trump would do something for the regular working people. But he says he's creating all these jobs, but they're all low-paid, minimum wage jobs. But we won't get into politics. But I totally agree with you as being right on those subjects.
Yeah, it's every leader that has ever made a significant difference in our world have been willing to put self aside for the greater good of those they serve.
Yeah.
Not to spend their time focused on protecting my power, my position, riling up defense and attack against those who they don't perceive as supporting them. Matter of fact, great leaders seek to convert those individuals by being kind to them, by reaching out to them in ways that are considerate and amicable, so that they can lead them to a place. Because a great leader has a vision for the future as to where they're going to take, whether it is the church or the nation or the school or whatever entity they are leading. And they have a vision for where they're going to go. And the vision is not about how powerful they're going to become, how much money they're going to make, how loyal people are going to be to them. Okay, the vision is, how am I going to make people's lives better? How am I going to make this organization more effective in fulfilling its mission and its purpose? And they are willing to sacrifice themselves in the process, not carry hurt feelings, being willing to forgive those who oppose them and try to show them love and bring them into the following of people who are going towards that common goal, that common mission. What we're seeing here is the opposite of that, and that perturbs me. But something. Here's the tragedy of the situation: evil destroys itself.
Right.
The unfortunate thing is that in the process of destroying itself, it destroys a lot of other things and people. And that's the unfortunate thing with the circumstance that we face ourselves with now.
Right. So the last question is how do we get to some of these people that, like you said, you spoke to quite a few people that said they voted for Trump because they thought he was a devout Christian, and they thought he was going to do well in office, and he hasn't lived up to their expectations. How do we get to these people and kind of change their minds as far as, he really isn't a good Christian person. He doesn't follow what Jesus did. He's been divorced 3 times. He's cheated on his wife. And we went through that whole subject before. But how do we get to some of these people? Are they just unable to get to because of racism, because of other beliefs that they just hold to, as far as white supremacy and anti-Semitism, all that other stuff? Are they just unable to get to, do you feel like?
Well, what you're doing right now, what we are doing right now, is part of that effort
Uh-huh.
So don't minimize the significance of this,
Sure.
because the job of getting people hooked on following Donald Trump is a massive media campaign
Right.
using social media, Fox News, and a number of other systems out there that carry half-truths in many instances,
Right.
and keep people informed only with the things that support the narrative that he wants. But when people like you and I talk up and say, this isn't right, hopefully some people will hear this conversation and say, you know something, these guys make sense.
Yeah.
My Christian heart can't continue to go with that kind of a conversation that minimizes other people and call people from certain countries by derogatory names. They are human beings like all of us. And I believe that as this impeachment hearing goes on, a lot of people will have an opportunity to view the reality that this is a president that is not concerned about the Constitution, is not concerned about the future of the country, is not concerned about retaining a system of good governance in the country, that he is primarily concerned in manipulating the entire system to please himself and to protect himself, and if allowed, stay in the office for as long as he can, without concern for effectiveness in governance and in promoting those values that make our world and our people better. So hopefully, as truth is spelled out in the impeachment hearing and other things, here is one of the realities of what we're dealing with. Only conversion can transform a person from being unkind and uncaring to being respectful and caring and loving. If President Trump doesn't become converted, he will continue to do what he's doing. And as time progresses, he will do things that some of these people will say, I've put up with so much for so long. I don't think I can continue this. This doesn't make sense. The other thing that I'd like to mention before we close off is that it's important that people question the premise of their decision making. They question what they hear. They take time to listen to other perspectives and other views, and not go headlong because my friends and those that I socialize with believe things this way, then it has to be right. It is important for people to question things and look at things from different perspectives, because unless we do that, we just stay in the same social club and swallow the same stuff all day long, and never give ourselves that opportunity to change our thinking process about what we're looking at. And I'm not saying that there aren't evil people on either side of the political spectrum.
Right.
And that's a danger that we are facing right now, that people have become so strongly party affiliated that they are willing to defend their party no matter what evil it does. And that's not what a Christian does. A Christian stands up for what is right, for what is principled, what is loving, what is kind, functions out of self-respect, because they respect the love that God has placed in their heart and the value that God has placed on them, and they're willing to stand alone if necessary, in their opinion, and not be swayed by the fancy thinking, moving thoughts.
Well, Patrick, I hope you're right. The thing I worry about to close on my end is that I just feel like there's so much hate now in this country that I never have really saw ever before. It's really sad. I mean, we talked about Charlottesville. We talk about all the guns that we see consistently, killings in our schools, Parkland, Newtown. I mean, the list goes on and on. And, you know, it's just from, you know, a lot of it's from, parental issues where the kids, don't have good relationships with the parents, and or the, video games, mental issues. But a lot of it's, stuff that people see on TV and they hear on TV. When Trump goes on TV, says I can shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and my supporters won't care, and he spews all these racist things about Hispanics, blacks, Jewish people, Native Americans. And, after people start, thinking about these things, and hate crimes go up. So I hope that, people listen to us. They really do kind of, think about that, and, say, hey, even if you're a Republican, you vote for, whoever's on the Democratic ticket, whether it's Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or Elizabeth Warren, whoever it may be. I mean, just look at the issues. Don't vote for the party, as you said. Vote for the person that you think is going to do the best job, that's going to help America be really great again. Because, I mean, I love this country with all my heart, but I just don't feel like this is the best it can be. I mean, I feel like we should be the leader of the world in healthcare and education, and we really are not. And it's really unfortunate. But
the good thing is that history is on our side. Right. When you think, when you look at history, we've seen in the past 2-3 centuries, the end of slavery, the end of apartheid, the end of Jim Crow. We've seen that where people of conscience, where people who love what is truth and righteous are willing to stand up and fight against evil, eventually they win. And that, I'm not saying it's going to be an easy battle, but I believe in my heart that eventually good will triumph over this whole situation.
Well, Patrick, thanks so much for the time. Appreciate this. For all the listeners, please like and subscribe to our podcast and listen to us on the air when you get a chance. Also, look out for Patric's book. It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, wherever you can buy books. I know those are the main spots, but it's God and President Trump plus the rest of us. So definitely look into that book. And it's a good read, and I'm definitely going to go out and buy it. And I really appreciate the time that you spent, and I learned a lot from you, and I hope the listeners learned a lot from you, Patrick.
God bless you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patrick. Have a good day.
God bless you. Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.